Tank, what did you think of Teofimo's fight getting canceled?
Hell no.
Huh? That boy can sell the tickets. That's why it got canceled.
Hell no.
That's why. Hell, damn, Corona.
You got Corona symptoms.
That was Gervonta Tank Davis. I'm going to leave the link for the full video in the description box below. With that being stated, Gervonta and his team followed up by wishing Teofimo Lopez well. Nevertheless, Gervonta believes Teofimo Lopez couldn't sell tickets. That's why his fight was postponed. Which, to no surprise, that's what a lot of people believe. As you guys see above, Leonard Ellaby, Floyd Mayweather CEO, he had revealed that the ticket prices for Teofimo Lopez versus Kambosos were originally $175 to $2,500, and they dropped all the way down from $40 to $400. And to make matter worse, the tickets were still not selling. But if they sell or don't sell, Triller still has to pay all the rappers and singers that were going to perform, from Meek Mill, Taylor, Justin Bieber, etc., etc. On top of that, they sure couldn't depend on the pay-per-view sales, because that wasn't looking too promising either, as there were major competition tonight from Bektemir versus Gabe Rosado, Munguia fight on the Zone. You also have Charlo versus Montiel on Showtime, and Nui is fighting on ESPN. And even on the other hand, there's a pay-per-view fight between Chavez Jr. and the UFC legend Silver, where the main event is the return of the legendary Chavez Sr. versus Hacha Camacho Jr. And Mando Vargas is also making his debut. So there's a lot going on. And Teofimo Lopez was promising to sell 2 million pay-per-view buys against Kambosos. I don't think so. He would have been lucky to sell 100,000, which is why Gervonta made that statement. In a way, Tank is letting Teo know, I am the A side. There is no discussion. You don't see Tank postponing his pay-per-view fight because he's going up against Lomachenko, who's fighting on ESPN. You don't see Tank moving his fight date because he couldn't sell tickets. In fact, it's the contrary. Tank always sells out. Tank also does well on pay-per-view, even if he goes up against a UFC pay-per-view. However, let Teofimo Lopez tell it. He's the A side over Tank, while continuously has to postpone his pay-per-view. Ladies and gents, this fight has been postponed for the second time. But we all know one thing. Men lie, women lie, some fighters definitely lie, but numbers don't lie. And numbers say Tank is the overwhelming A side. Therefore, if you claim you the A side when you clearly not, then in all reality, you do not want the fight. Everyone has to play their position. To all of the Teo fans, I want you guys to answer this question while being sincere. If Pretty Boy Floyd Mayweather claimed he was the A side when he was hunting down Oscar De La Hoya moving up 5 weight divisions, would Floyd Mayweather had fought Oscar De La Hoya then? It's a rhetorical question. Of course not. Because even after Floyd Mayweather beat Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd Mayweather actually offered Oscar De La Hoya a rematch. But do you guys know, even then, Oscar De La Hoya turned down the fight because he wouldn't even take a 50-50 split after losing to Floyd. He still wanted to get majority of the money. That's exactly why Oscar De La Hoya walked away from the rematch and fought Manny Pacquiao the year after. See, Floyd Mayweather is a perfect example of a fighter that truly wanted the fight. Because even after Floyd Mayweather came off selling $500,000 on pay-per-view against Baldomir, Floyd still accepted every single Oscar De La Hoya demand. In order to land the fight, Floyd Mayweather accepted to wear heavyweight ounce gloves, fighting in a smaller ring, getting lowballed with an 80-20, 70-30 split. Floyd, with all of his credentials of being pound for pound number one, being on pay-per-view on more than one occasion, he did whatever it takes to fight the cash cow in Oscar De La Hoya. Meanwhile, Teofimo Lopez today, he want to claim he's the A side when he's clearly not. Then accuses Gervonta Tank Davis of being scared. I mean, you really can't make this up. This is another maneuvering tactic by Teofimo Lopez. Furthermore, I had a conversation last week with Dante from Dante's Boxing Nation, where I told him that there are 2 fights I have a bad feeling that they are not going to take place when they are supposed to. And those were Teo versus Kambosos and Wilder versus Fury trilogy. A few days later, Teo versus Kambosos fight got canceled yet again, but this time around was due to the COVID. How crazy is that? Now, first of all, I had a bad feeling that the fight wasn't going to take place on the June 19th date due to all of the facts I mentioned earlier. And according to some of my inside sources, Teofimo Lopez haven't been looking good in sparring. I was told that Teo would look good shadowboxing, but he wasn't looking good sparring. Now, when I heard them rumors, the way I viewed it is that Teo is sparring in Vegas, and we already know what time it is. Vegas is now becoming the capital of boxing. The best talent is in Vegas, so you're going to have better quality sparring in Vegas, at least technically. So it wasn't shocking to hear that news, but when you start putting it together with Kambosos claiming that Teo is struggling to make the weight, along with Teo energy seemed to be a little off toward Kambosos, I truly believe Teo punked Lomachenko leading up to their fight. However, he failed to do the same to Kambosos. Say what you want to say about Kambosos. One thing for sure and 2 things for certain, this man is genuinely full of confidence that he can upset the apple cart in Teofimo Lopez. In fact, one thing that caught my attention the most is when Kambosos has stated that Teofimo Lopez is a fake. So when Behind the Gloves asked Kambosos, why did you make that statement? He explained that when Teofimo Lopez is talking, he talks just to talk. He talks rubbish by saying things that he don't even believe. In other words, he's capping in order to intimidate someone. Kambosos stated that the difference between me and Teo, I don't say anything unless I truly believe it or mean it, which I found that very intriguing because Teo will say things like, bring me Devin Haney's head. I want him next. I'ma put him in the dirt. Even if he lost to Linares, I want to fight Devin Haney. A couple days later, Bob Arum reveals to the public that Teo manager contacted him and they talked about Teofimo Lopez's future fight, and it's not Devin Haney. They more interested in Pedraza, who Tank already slept, and few other names since Josh Taylor fight is not available. In other words, they willing to fight anybody but Devin Haney. According to Bob, Teo manager informed him that Devin Haney is not next. He's not in the plans. I already made a video on that, which I'm gonna leave the link for that video in the comment section below. The point here is, this is the volume 2 of the fakeover season, which this is what Kambosos was alluding to. On top of that, it's very telling in the time being that Teofimo Lopez never came out to deny anything Bob Arum said, since it was Teofimo Lopez's own manager that gave Bob Arum their NBF plan. And now, thanks to the fight with Kambosos being postponed yet again, this actually gave Lopez a way out of the nightmare with Devin Haney. But in all reality, Teo wasn't gonna fight Devin Haney anyway. Nevertheless, when Teo does fight Kambosos, if Teo doesn't get Kambosos out of there in 3 rounds, and the fight actually goes past the 6th round, you can expect this to be a very tough fight for Teo, since he has stamina issues. On top of all of that, Kambosos seemed to be very gamed. You always hear Kambosos talk about the flaws he see in Teo, so he definitely did his homework. And last but not least, to give Teo the benefit of the doubt, he was wearing a mask more than 3 weeks ago. He did suggest that he was sick. And even though I have seen Teo without a mask afterwards, which I have assumed he got well. So if in fact Teo did catch the COVID more than 3 weeks ago, why we only heard about the news during the week of the fight? I mean, people have flights, people booked hotels, so on and so forth. It only takes 2 weeks for you to have severe COVID symptoms. And with the testing nowadays, you would know if you have COVID the day of. So if Teo was sick then, the way AK suggested on the zone, why did it take more than 3 weeks for us to find that out? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below, subscribe below, and click on the notification bell to be continued on the next episode of Akhi, Akhi, TV. Peace, and I'm on to the next one.